Hello,
I am Mike,
and I am Adrian.
and we are young doctors from the Philippines.
If this is your first time to join us, we talk about anything related to pre-med, med proper, clerkship, internship, PLE, USMLE, and beyond.
Welcome to the Better Pill, your weekly prescription of tips and insights to become better students
Better interns.
and better doctors. What's
So,
up, bro?
What's up, bro? What's up, better doctors? Yung episode natin today, well, Sibs and I, we thought of this kasi meron akong pinsan na papasok this year sa UST FMS, first year med. And syempre, since incoming freshman, ang dami niyang questions sa akin. Syempre, marami naman akong tips based on my experience. Pero may isang problem. Kasi yung setup nila, iba sa setup namin before. Setup kasi nila ngayon is purely online learning. Wala kami masyadong experience sa purely online learning. 'Di ba, Bro Sibs?
Oo, nakakapanibago, bro. Kung ako, bro, ang tip ko lang sa kanya, maghanap ng stable na internet. Yun lang yung kaya kong mabigay sa kanya.
Well, syempre, number one naman talaga yun, no? So, anyways, since
Saan, bro,
wala kami
mag-med? Yung
masyadong
pinsan mo?
experience, sa UST. Sa UST rin. So, since wala kami masyadong experience ni Sibs, we tried to look for someone na may experience sa online learning and sa online med school specifically.
Tamang-tama, bro. May friend kasi ako na kakatapos lang ng first year ngayon sa UST rin, UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. Then ngayon, sem break nila, kaya incoming siya na second year. Introduce ko na ba, bro, ang ating guest
Sige
ngayon?
bro, introduce natin.
So our guest today took his pre-med in UST BS Pharmacy batch 2015. Actually, he is my classmate and our class president nung pre-med. Then afterwards, hindi muna siya nag-medicine, nag-took up siya ng Masters in Public Health sa UP Manila. Then graduated in 2019. And in between ng 2016 and 2020, isa siyang professor sa Virgen Milagrosa University Foundation. Then actually, after nun, noong 2017, na-awardan siya ng Outstanding Faculty Researcher sa same university. Then, noong 2020, ngayon, nag-take up siya ng medicine sa UST FMS. Then, ang current affiliations niya, Young Pharmacist Group Philippines, AMSA UST, and UST Medicine Student Council. Actually, bro, yung achievements niya, abutin tayo ng 10 episodes. So, ang pinaka-recent niya na achievement, third runner-up ng Clinical Pathologic Case Competition sa APMC.
Wow.
So, grabe, no? So, bukod
Bro,
doon, bro.
first year pa lang yung
First year
guest
pa lang, bro.
natin,
Pero,
ang dami na niyang credentials na dami ng achievement. So,
grabe.
talagang
Grabe ang
I'm pretty sure marami tayong matututunan today.
super, bro. No? Iba ang kalibre na to, eh. Kumbaga tayo, maliit na bala. Ito, machine gun. So, bukod doon sa mga binanggit ko, hobbies niya, kumanta, gumawa ng music, mag-play ng instruments. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ramoncito Gabriel Gab Paragas, RPH, MPH.
Hello everyone.
Ooh, hello.
Good day sa
Welcome
lahat ng
to our show.
listeners ninyo. Good day sa lahat ng listeners ninyo, Adrian and Michael. So thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you for accepting our invitation, Gab.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Gab, no? Talagang marami kaming questions for you today and hopefully our listeners, especially yung mga incoming freshmen, no? Kasi sila yung talagang very eager, no? And marami talaga silang questions. So, hopefully they learn a thing or two or more today. So, let's kick off our show, bro. Let's start with the first question.
Yes, bro. So, first question. What was it like doing your first year in medicine online?
Very good question. Actually, to be honest, if I would encapsulate it in one word, mahirap na siya. So, mahirap talaga med school. I suppose from the experiences, of course, from yung my supposed batchmates, no, when I was listening to their experiences. Pero ako personally, feeling ko mas mahirap siya ngayon na online kasi you also have to adjust with different settings. You also have to understand different situations, and you also have to adjust with different problems na, for example, wala ka talagang control. Like, for example, mga connectivity problems, like calamities all over the country. Ayun. So that's how I would describe my first year medical education. But in terms of learning naman, parang same pa rin siya, same pa rin naman yung coverage. It's just that there are different ways by which medical education is being done now in comparison with how it's actually done face to face or in the on-site setup. So ayun.
Okay. Thank you for that, Gab. No, but for you, gaano ba kalaki yung difference in terms of learning? In terms of learning, gaano ba kalaki yung difference ng online versus physical classes? Kasi syempre hindi mo naman ma-compare, no, sa medicine, but
Yeah.
in terms of your experience sa undergrad, sa masters, no, can you differentiate yung online and in terms of learning?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, as someone also who is you know both naka-experience ng parang both sides of the table both as a prof and also as a student, malaki talaga yung difference niya in terms of let's say for example sa pag estudyante ako noon sa masters and estudyante ako nung college, parang kasi you get the emotional support from your classmates. You also get the social support. You also have different organization works that you are looking forward kapag after ng class. Pero pag ngayon kasi pag online, parang hindi mo na rin yun ganun nakukuha. Sama mo din dyan yung differences by the way that things are being taught. Let's say for example, nung time namin ng college saka ng masters, parang new concept sa amin yung mga yung flipped classroom setup, parang ganun, or parang ba dito yung pagkakaroon for example ng mga video recordings, mga ganyan, or parang binibigay na yung learning materials ahead of time. Parang this thing is actually not being done earlier from the way that I experienced it from the from the other degrees, no. Pero ngayon kasi, since online na, parang everything is given to you beforehand. Tapos, lahat talaga virtual. Like, for example, the way that laboratory is actually being performed. Very different talaga siya. So, yun. So, in terms of the learning aspect and in terms of the way that things are being taught, in terms of you also adjusting socially, mentally, physically. I think yun marami talagang differences yung online setup and the way that it's done on site.
So yun bro, no, nabanggit mo na iba. Pero bro, in short ba, compared sa physical classes, do you have more free time sa online setup or mas konti?
Well, I cannot say, I cannot speak for I cannot honestly speak for the others, no? But the way that I noticed kasi how medical education was done before, parang parang laboratory, everything tatapusin mo na siya sa school, tapos tatapusin mo na yung ibang learnings, tapos yung ibang activities lang, assignment lang siya. But this time the difference is that sa online there is actually less clear delineation by how tawag mo dito? Paano ka ba makakapag-set ng boundaries kung kailan yung pang-school time mo, 'di ba? Tsaka yung kailan yung time mo for studies. Kasi there are sometimes meron kung minsan for example magpapa-meeting lalo na kung class president ka for example. There are some departments who will be asking for your free time kasi kailangan nila for example na-meet kayo kasi meron kayong kailangang i-facilitate online. There are also other stuff kagaya ng
bale bro, parang may bargaining pala ng schedule, no?
Yeah.
Hindi siya yung specified
yung super clear cut.
Hindi
Okay,
siya super clear.
this time, ganyan. Class nyo from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. lang.
Yeah.
Hindi siya ganun.
Hindi siya super clear kasi parang ang klase mo for example sa amin for example, ako sa section C, ang klase ko ay 7 to 6 or 7 to 4. Kung minsan kasi you also have to do the SGD work, kailangan mong mag-adjust sa time, for example, ng mga nasa Manila, kailangan mo mag-adjust sa time ng mga other classmates. So, I cannot truly say na maraming free time. I also say this because, for example, di ba dati nga, sabi ko nga, di ba, laboratory work can be done in school and then afterwards, uwi ka na, magpahinga ka na or bumiyahe ka na. But now, laboratory work actually will be scheduled sa free time mo na eh. O parang bibigyan ka, for example, ng software. For example, sa isang subject namin, for example, may virtual laboratory. O you do this on your free time. Kung kailan ka pwedeng umulit ng umulit kasi pwedeng mag-crash yung software, no? Pwedeng mag-crash yung software, tapos pwede mo siyang ulitin, tapos iti-take note mo ulit yung results. Tapos, di ba, yung laboratory kasi na aspect, 'di ba? Sometimes parang hindi na kasi kami nakakapag-laboratory. So, pinapalitan siya ng mga paperwork. So, I think that also takes up some of your free time. So, parang
So, yung lab classes
somehow.
nyo pala, parang, okay, do it on your free time. Walang set time na, okay, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, lab to. Gawin nyo to. Hindi siya ganun.
Yeah, generally, oo, parang ganun. Kasi sa anatomy din namin, parang ganun eh. Sa anatomy din namin, like yung lab exercises, and then yung cadaver viewing, binibigyan na nila ahead of time. Biochem, parang ganun din eh. Physiology, parang somehow ganun lahat sila.
So,
Okay,
parang
but-
virtually, no? Extended yung class hours, no?
Yeah, somehow, ganun.
But in
ganun
terms of
nangyari.
content, siguro, hindi naman, different yung online and physical classes in terms of content.
No.
Siguro, it's
Oo.
just in terms of how things are done.
How things are being taught, yes.
Mm-mm.
By how things are being taught, but the content, I think, hindi naman nagbawas ng hindi din nagbawas ng coverage. Like, sa histology, I think, neoplasia lang yata, tas nilipat na yata siya sa pathology for next year. Pero parang all the rest naman, hindi din naman nagbawas ng coverage. It's still the same, but the way that things are being handled, I think, it's really tailor-fit for online learning, and I think everyone is also trying their best to minimize the fatigue that we get from it.
Okay, so, in your opinion, personally, do you think kulang yung na-learn mo sa first year? Because walang physical, sa labs, syempre, maraming mga experiments, di ba, na physical talaga. Everything is done virtually. In your opinion lang, in your personal view, kulang ba or hindi? Sa opinion mo lang, kasi hindi naman natin
Oo.
masasabi you can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody, and I'd like din na i-separate din yung opinion ko from UST, of course, as a med student. Pero pero in terms of learning naman for me, kasi all of us students, kasi we have the same learning load. We still have to learn the same things, and whether it's on-site or off-site, or whether it's online or on-site, parang lahat tayo kasi pare-parehas lang talaga yung kailangan i-learn. In terms of the way that it's being taught, I think that's really going to affect din. So kaya kailangan talagang mag-adjust kami na students on our learning styles, on the time that we study, on how we try to learn things. Dapat ganun talaga. So, for your question, meron bang kulang? Pakiramdam ko merong kulang kasi there's still that aspect of you learning things by doing it. It also boils down with how a student learns. Like for example, for myself, I learn by moving, I learn by talking, I learn by listening, I also learn by doing. So I remember things better when I remember that I did this, or I remember that I did that, instead of just hearing and looking at it. So feeling ko merong kulang, pero naman siya, tinatry naman siyang i-compensate somehow by some other means. So yun din, papasok talaga mahalaga kung paano ka ba mag-a-adjust as a learner, on how you will try to adjust also your learning style and try to embrace it better.
Agree ako dyan. And of course, as humans, in this situation, we just have to adapt talaga, And I know everybody, the students, the faculty, everybody's trying to do their best naman to really
Yes.
adapt to the changes that this pandemic has brought.
Tama, bro, no? So, speaking of adaptation, bro, no? Gab, how did you adapt yung learning style mo sa online setup compared sa pre-med mo at saka sa masteral degree mo? Nagbago ba no online?
Ay nako, oo. Actually, ang hirap din niya. Hindi siya ganun kadali, bro, nung nag-start yung online classes. Kasi, for example, sanay ako nung college tayo, nung college tayo, mas sanay ako nga sa parang learning by doing. Kasi, di ba, pharmacy is very laboratory-based. Yung iba't ibang mga practices like yung patient care itself. The internships natin ay very social-based. Sa Master of Public Health din, very based din siya sa community work, sa reporting. Tapos, yun somehow, yung mga aspects noong mga education na yun, nadala ko naman siya sa med. Like, for example, the reporting part, the speaking part, or the doing part, nagagawa naman siya somehow. Pero, ano ba tawag dito? In terms of yung adjustment, in terms of adjustment, I really had tried to adjust with, yun nga, yung being presented with a lot of data or being presented. Kasi the load itself of med school na mabigat na talaga siya. Para siyang binagsakan ka ng maraming libro sa harapan mo. That's how I felt before. Yung imagine mo yung bigat ng clinical anatomy and then ng physiology, ng biochem. All of these all together. And then a subject that's not really familiar with you, like histology, for example. It really depends on microscopes, mga ganyan. So I really had to adjust kasi ako visual learner ako. So medyo naghahanap ako ng other resources for me to learn. So paano ba nagbago? Kasi noon dati, 'di ba, sabi ko nga learning by doing and then by speaking or reporting. I tried to adjust that here kasi mas maraming I realize sobrang social subject pala ng sobrang social course pala nitong med kasi we had to relate with other groupmates, we had to talk to our classmates, we had to work as a team. Laging ganun siya. So parang adjustment ulit kasi dati sanay ka na lagi kang mag-isa nagre-report. Ngayon kailangan mo sa mga small group discussions, for example, kailangan mo laging makinig. Ano ba sasabihin niya? Kailangan mo din mag-adjust. Kailangan isipin mo kung nakapag-recite na ba lahat, ganyan. So, mga ganun. In terms of the learning style naman, definitely nabawasan yung dun sa learning by doing, but I had to teach myself. Laging ganun na yung style ko ngayon. Lagi din na nag-adjust din ako ngayon kasi nung college ako, hindi ako nag-active recall, hindi ako nagtatanong sa sarili ko na parang, ano mangyayari sa patient pag ganito, pag na-lacerate siya sa ganito, anong layer dapat. Hindi ako nagtatanong ng ganun. Pero ngayon na med school, parang it really forced you to do things that you are uncomfortable with. Pero in the long run, like for example, yung active recall, yung mga asking questions, mga ganyan, it also helps. Ngayon ko din natutunan din na maki-relate or mag-ask ng questions din with other classmates kasi before nung college din nung masters parang you're on your own, kaya mo siyang aralin by yourself, pero ngayon kasi parang it helps talaga na i-restore mo pa rin yung human connection pag nag-aaral ka, so wag mo siyang tatanggalin na aspect. So yun, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you for that, Gab. Magandang sagot yun. So this online setup, may mga magaganda naman siyang naidulot, no? May mga positive din siyang outcome, 'di ba? Especially when it comes to knowing yourself, parang self-awareness. Tapos kailangan anong tawag dito? Kilala mo talaga yung
tama,
sarili
bro,
mo
yung
mag-adjust
learning
ka
yourself,
talaga,
no?
'di ba? Oo, kasi self-directed na yung learning, more self-directed
Tama, bro.
siya
Exactly.
with online. Anyways,
Parang sariling bro, sariling
sikap.
kusa mo na eh.
Oo. So, let's try to make things parang concrete, no? Can you take us to your parang daily routine, no? How your day goes? Gising kang ganitong oras and then you do this, you do that. What's a day in med school, in online med school like in UST for you?
Oh gosh.
Yung average na
It's okay.
what's
average.
a usual or an average day like? What is it like?
So para sa mga listeners natin, no, ang gusto ko lang sabihin sa inyo na parang actually mag-iiba-iba siya every shift kasi pwede ka ding mag-iba-iba na strategy. But for me, on the average, what happens is I wake up at around mga 5:30 a.m. or at about 6 a.m. So that's about 1 or 1.5 hour before the classes, kasi usually our classes start at 7 a.m. and you have to be online na by at least 30 minutes para hindi ka na ma-technical difficulty by entering the classroom or the virtual classroom. So yun, so what happens is nagkaklase kami ng about 7 to 11 7 to 11 a.m. and then that depends sa subjects kung meron silang pinapagawa sa lunchtime. If meron, for example, na quizzes, and then we also study na mga hanggang 4 or hanggang 6 p.m. What happens is, after the class, usually ang nangyayari dyan ay we rest by about 30 minutes or 1 hour. So, for example, kung ang tapos ng klase namin ay 4 p.m., magre-rest kami na hanggang 5 p.m. and then mag-chat na kami ng mga kaklase namin for us to be able to do the SGD for the next day or the SGD for the next day. So, yun yung sinasabi ko kanina na natitake na din yung free time actually. So, you have to do your SGD like i-discuss nyo na sa isa't isa yung answers ninyo or you'll try to answer it by your own. So,
Kala ko kamustahan yung chat.
Nako, sinasama na doon, sinasama na doon actually. Pero mostly, kasi, nung mga first, to be honest, nung mga first shift hanggang second shift, ayan, napapractice pa namin. Pero pagdating ng third shift, fourth shift, pagod na kami, magsagot kayo ng sarili nyo, parang ganun yung nangyayari. So, parang meron ding Zoom fatigue din kahit paano. And then what happens, pagdating ng mga, yun, di ba, mga 4 to 5, that subject, parang 4 to 5, that's subject number 1. And then personal time mo na yung 5 to 7, ganyan. Usually, mga 7 or 8 p.m., may second na SGD meeting for another subject. So, parang ganun din yung natitake niya. Or unless, halimbawa, kung may extracurriculars ka, that can also take your time in the meeting. Pero pag wala naman, on the average student, so wala namang ganun. So, inaabot hanggang 9 p.m. pag gagawa ka ng second subject na SGD. And then yung 9 to 12 or parang 9 to 12 or 9 to whichever time. Sa akin kasi usually inaabot ako. Nagsaset ako ng cap na hanggang 2 a.m. lang or 1 a.m. Tapos tsaka ko aaralin yung ibang topics or papanoorin ko na yung topics for the next day. So parang ganun.
Bale bro, ilang hours yung tulog mo, bro?
Kuminsan 4 hours, kuminsan 3 hours.
Wow.
So from 9 p.m. to around 2 a.m., parang sariling time mo na yun from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. From 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Sariling time mo na yun.
Mm-mm.
Parang
Pero
self-study na.
Parang self-study naman yun. Pero yun nga, like I mentioned, noong mga first to second shift kasi hindi naman kami, yung first to second shift kami talaga synchronous gumagawa ng mga, what do you call this, mga SGD. Like
yes.
together, nagdi-discuss pa kami nun. Pero nung mga fourth shift na namin, third shift na namin. Kasi
individual na.
ako kasi, for example, galing ako sa Section C. So Section C was, sa first year, ang Section C yung pinaka maluwag yung schedule, kaya nagagawa namin yun. Pero pagdating nung second semester kasi, ngayon, term na ang tawag sa UST, no? So, second term. Ngayon, parang kami na yung pinaka-toxic na yung schedule kasi nagpalit kami na Section A, yung talagang toxic na schedule na. So, hindi na kinakaya yung synchronous. So, basically, ang pinagbago lang ng schedule, parang meron lang kuminsan na mga synchronous na meetings. Pero all the rest, like pang 8 to 12 or 8 to 2, yun yung gagamitin mo to study on the quiz for tomorrow or to study on the subject for tomorrow. So usually, sa akin, ang ginagawa ko kasi, ang pinaka hindi ko malilimutan na advice ay yung isa sa mga favorite kong prof sa physio. Sabi niya, ang secret daw sa med school ay always parang advanced studying daw. So, ang maganda naman sa nangyari ngayon sa blended learning, what I do is, I watch the lecture for the next day on this day. So, halimbawa, ngayong araw, ano yung topic bukas sa anatomy, ano yung topic bukas sa histology or sa ClinEp, yun ang aaralin ko kasi nagbigay na sila ng material. So, that's first pasada yon. So, unang pasada yon ng natutunan mo. Tapos, sa next day, live lecture, ginagawa naman nila sa live lecture yun. So, you watch and you just listen. So, parang that's your second time to learn. Tapos, kapag may quiz yon tomorrow, tsaka on the night before, tsaka ko siya ulit aaralin. Not advisable na mag-all-nighter, napansin ko. hindi siya magandang tip for pero hindi ko kaya sa time na nabibigay din ng online learning. mukhang inevitable, hindi maiiwasan. So, ganun yung usual na schedule ko. And then sa weekends, talagang you just try to seek na talagang yung buong Sunday mo sana, hindi sana ma-occupy ng ibang activities. Pero yung Saturday mo kasi kung minsan meron.
Yung lectures nyo, sabi mo live.
Mm-mm.
Live yung lectures as in the professor teaches live? Or recorded siya?
Hindi, ganito. Depende kasi yun sa subject. Like for example, sa physiology or sa physiology and sa biochemistry, may lecture sila na recorded na binibigay sa amin parang days ahead. Tapos on the actual day, ang nangyayari ay piniplay yung lecture na yun.
Piniplay lang. So the
Piniplay yung
recorded lecture is given in advance.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's given in advance, and then it's being played on the same day. And then what biochemistry does, for example, is that they have what you call a lecturette. So it's a little lecture na hina-highlight niya kung ano yung highlights or ano yung
Important
main key,
parts.
important parts. Or they also sometimes ask questions na doon. So after nung playing nung recording na yon, they do another lecture. So
A live lecture this time.
Yeah, live lecture naman.
Okay.
Sa physiology din somehow ganun, but it's more on asking questions na. Asking questions, and then what do you need to learn. Sa histology, they also adapted the same technique noong second term na, pero what they did was ganun pa rin, parang recorded siya tapos may live meeting lang to
So,
discuss questions.
Depende pala siya sa subject. Iba-iba yung style
Yeah.
nila. But the point is, they give something in advance and then you have an actual lecture also.
Yes,
Parang
parang ganun nga. Iba talaga siya per subject.
How about your SGDs? How do your SGDs go?
Yeah, okay. So sa SGDs naman, usually yan nangyayari ang SGD. So for the listeners, no, yung SGDs ay 'di ba mga small group discussions siya. I'm not sure kung paano niyo siya ginawa nung on-site na classes pa. But what we do is
During our time,
Oo.
on-site, no? So, we're, di ba the class of 120 or so, divided into small groups,
small
around
groups.
10 to 15. And then, meron kaming facilitator na professor. Tapos yun, we just discuss kasi we are given in
Questions.
advance yung mga questions. May case, clinical case, and then questions afterwards. And we're given that sheet in advance. Sinasagutan namin as a group or individually. Then we discuss it afterwards sa actual SGD.
Parang same setup din naman siya, pero parang ang nangyayari naman sa amin, I'm not sure kung ganito din yung ginagawa. After the live lecture or the lecturette, or after the recorded lecture and the lecturette, they will give us like 5 minutes to look for our links. So meron kami parang classroom na designated, nakalagay na siya sa learning resource or dun sa platform namin. And then we click on that link, tapos parang ganun din, small group din, we all go to that virtual classroom, and then tsaka kami nagsa-start ng discussion. Sometimes the facilitator flashes slides sa screen to facilitate the questions, but sometimes it's also as students na meron na kaming presentation, meron na kaming slideshow na pinapresent namin, or sometimes we also use what you call your Jamboard, if you're familiar with Jamboard. Are you
What's a
familiar?
Jamboard? No.
Okay. Okay, sige. Yung Jamboard, siya, para siyang application siya ng Google na parang siya, it's like a whiteboard in which everyone can write at the same time.
Okay.
So, meron kaming Jamboard na, lalo na we usually use that sa physiology. Like, if we try to explain the concept, pag nag-increase ba si ganito, mag-i-increase ba si ganito, or magde-decrease siya, or walang mangyayari. Like, if we try to write down there, parang makikita mo kung kaninong picture yung gumagalaw. So for example, si Gab yung nagdo-drawing nung line na ganito ganyan. You can also put your sticky notes, mga ganyan. So it's quite it's parang feeling ko nung nakikita ko sa mga music video nung mga batches ninyo, naggaganon din kayo may whiteboard kayo, tas meron kayong mga
physical nga lang sa
physical. Yung sa amin lang talaga parang ay, okay, so gumagalaw na to. Tapos may nag-erase na nung akin, hindi ko nakikita. So parang pakiramdaman talaga siya. So that's what we do. We also use Jamboard. Tapos ganun din, parang almost the same din as what you do in your SGDs na sometime na we will try to answer some of the questions. Ganun.
Pero bro, pag recitation ba, how do you raise your hand? Papakita mo kami mo sa
okay.
camera.
Very good question. Kasi sa amin kasi, to be honest ako on ako ng camera kasi lagi ako naka-uniform, naka-ganyan. Parang gusto ko kasi nagpapakita sa prof kasi I understand that I understand how it feels as a prof kasi nagturo ako ng online setup din before. So, nasak yung energy ko talaga pag wala talagang estudyanteng naka-on-cam. So, ako nag-on-cam ako. Pero this time kasi, pag meron kang mga kaklase na wala talaga, mahina yung bandwidth nila, kailangan kami mag-turn off ng camera. So, how we raise our hands, it's either sa Zoom kasi or sa Google Meet
Di ba
kasi
may
there is
button
a
yon na
Oo,
raise hand?
may raise hand function actually. Tapos parang pwede mo siyang i-press, tapos makikita siya nung prof. Pero sometimes kasi some of the prof, some of the facilitators or the doctors do
Hindi
not
napapansin.
hindi nila napapansin. So, kaya what they do is actually they just ask us to, okay, interrupt me anytime if you have questions. Tapos kapag magsasagot ka na or parang tanong ng questions, magpakiramdaman na lang kayo kung sino yung gusto or parang what we do nga kung minsan ay may naka-on na chat box ng messenger for example na magtatanong who wants to answer this one, sino pa bang hindi pa nakaka-recite, parang ganun talaga, you try to adjust to everyone. So pwede ka interrupt anytime like opening your mic or opening your camera, pero opening camera parang hindi masyado namin ginagawa kasi bandwidth talaga yung kalaban eh.
So, ganun pa rin bro, no? Pag online, pakiramdaman pa rin pala, no?
Oo,
Kasi may point kasi bro, kada recite no, may point.
Oo, pero mas mahirap ngayon. Mas mahirap daw ang pakiramdaman ngayon kasi parang paano mo mapapakiramdaman yung kaklase mo na hindi mo rin nakikita. So, kami dyan, nagme-messenger na lang kami. Do you wanna answer this? Sinong hindi may alam ng sagot nito? Ganyan. So, parang ganun ang ginagawa namin.
Speaking of pakiramdaman, bro, kasi, di ba, a lot of first year med, syempre, masayang time na yun because you meet new people.
Mm-mm.
And then, you really have to develop relationships with your classmate, especially yung mga kasubsec mo, no? Kasi, that will affect your work dynamics. So, my question is, how did you, syempre, yung mga classmate mo siguro, are new people kasi, hindi ka nag-med right away, no? So, hindi mo makakabatch yung classmates mo. So, yung question ko is, how did you bond or how did you develop parang rapport or camaraderie with your subsec mates through, virtually lang?
Well, first of all, ang maging advice ko dyan, for example, or me looking back, noon kasi number one, we had to accept that we are not going to meet na eh. Parang we are not going to meet for quite some time. So, acceptance is first na tinanggap namin yun, and then second is we saw to it to ourselves that we should be able to make a culture of our own. It's quite unique kasi hindi namin pwedeng tanungin halimbawa sila Sibs, hindi ko pwedeng tanungin na paano yung ganito yung ganyan kasi malulungkot lang ako eh kasi ganito nyo ginawa on site or sa face to face, pero hindi namin siya magagawa ngayon. So what we did before sa section level muna, what I did before was, nag-invite ako ng hangout. So, gusto nyo ba guys mag-hangout? So, parang buong section yun na nagkilala kami. And then, parang meron kaming game night, meron kami movie night. So, parang may mga ganun to bond with each other. Parang it's less serious.
And you do this through Zoom ba? Zoom?
We did this with Zoom before. Like, ang mga games namin, mga Bring Me, ganyan. Kasi it's, yung mga kaya mong gawin within your room. Like, mga Bring Me, charades. Parang mga ganun. Parang, looking back, it's one of the most fun experiences that we had. And then, the second time, ang target naman namin was to make sure that some of our classmates na galing ng ibang schools, like, for example, for myself, nanggaling ako ng ibang batch, nanggaling ako ng ibang school, like, I came from another school, not from UST. Tapos, meron din kami mga from other schools, like Ateneo, UP, UE, Lasal, and Visayas, Mindanao. So, itong mga to, in-invite talaga namin sila dun to make them feel welcome. So, we made sure muna na yung the class itself has a good bond. And then, sa amin, sa mga first SGDs namin as a subsec, ang ginawa namin noon talaga yung mga first SGDs namin or before kami na mag-SGD, we really spent the first time na mag-meet namin ng Google Meet or ng Zoom to ask questions, to play games, to really bond with each other. And then some of our classmates nga, some of our for us, for example, for some of our subsections, meron silang mga movie nights, may mga game nights din sila. Tapos they really get involved with their, alam mo yun, kahit yung mga memes nga, very important na to eh. Yung pagsasend ng memes sa mga classmates, sa pagsasend ng jokes, kahit gaano pa ka-corny yan, send namin, and then we get to meet. And then some of our classmates, yung mga talagang magkakalapit sila, although I don't advise this, kung kaya nyo mag-maintain ng mga social distancing, some of them actually met na sa Cubao. But for us, for example, yun, mga game night, and then making sure that gising ang isa't isa bago mag-quiz, yun yung mga bonding moments namin. Yun, movie nights, mga ganyan.
Tama yun, bro, no? Mga good memories, no?
Yeah. You have to be able to make your own culture. Tanggapin mo yung reality ng situation, and then you make the most out of it eh. I think it makes us more fun and excited of each other when we get to meet each other. True. Ang joke na nga namin ngayon pag nakita mo, hala, ang liit pala ni Kuya Gab, hala, ang tangkad pala ni Kuya Gab. Mga ganun yung mga joke namin ngayon Sabi niya, ini-expect ko na matangkad ka kasi ang baba ng boses mo, ganyan. Mga ganyan yung sinasabi namin. Tapos yung pag nagkita-kita daw, yung mga iba namin, yung mga C4 yata, kasi ako C5, yung mga C4 before, nagkita-kita sila, kasi mga taga Manila sila. Nagkita-kita, sabi ang tatangkad pala nung iba, tapos yung iba daw maliit, ganyan. So,
nag-eyeball na pala kayo.
Yung iba, yung iba yung mga taga Manila, pero kami mga taga province hindi din makasama minsan.
So it's nice no na nag-adapt talaga yung class to the virtual setup, and yung hindi kayo, I mean you found ways talaga to have fun, to bond virtually. Kahit hindi kayo nagkikita physically. So that's nice, no? That's something nice.
Tama, bro, no? Hindi ko nga naisip yung bro, yung gumawa ka ng games sa Zoom, yung Bring Me, yung movie night. Parang hindi natin naisip yun, bro, no?
Parang I feel like pati nga mga organizations, they got a little bit creative din.
Yeah,
pag may mga
you really have to get creative.
You really had to be to get creative, like gumagamit ng Mentimeter ngayon, like mga word, parang mga word cloud before. Like I remember my second, ang tawag kasi namin doon Sexy Nights, kasi diba section C kami, tapos Sexy Nights. Tapos what we did was Mentimeter, parang how do you feel today? Tapos meron kang i-input na mga emotions, ganyan sa sa cellphone mo. Tapos yun ang makikita namin sa screen. Like we really had to get creative. Tapos pati yung mga poll, pinatulan namin yun, pati mga breakout room. Naging master kami ng technology because of the pandemic.
True. So I see na nag-adapt talaga yung class, no? And you really got creative just to make the most out of your first year experience. Kasi for me, that's, I think, the best year talaga in med school, the first year. So my next question is, what do the incoming freshmen need to prepare? Okay, ano yung mga essentials, yung mga must-haves? If you could give them a list of the things na kailangan nilang i-prepare before they start first year med, ano yung mga bagay na yun? What are the essentials that they should not forget?
Okay. Sige. Sabihin ko sana sabihin
Bukod
ko sana
sa wifi.
Oo. Sabihin ko sana prepare your heart, mind, soul, and strength kasi sobrang nakaka-drain talaga siya. But kidding aside, well, I wasn't kidding when I said that, kasi yun talaga yung unang kailangan mo i-prepare, like your mental, your physical health talaga. Make sure na kumakain ka ng tama, ganyan. But if you're asking like for the physical things, for me personally, I still prefer na mag-prepare pa rin kayo ng mga writing materials or what you use for writing, like your favorite pen, your favorite paper, syempre pati yung mga highlighters din if it works for you. Kasi ako, for example, hindi ako color learner. Kahit ilang highlighter ang ibigay mo sa akin, hindi siya nagwo-work. So hindi kasi ako color learner, more on visual ako and auditory. Aside from that, you also have to aside from your of course your writing materials, I think kung merong pera or kung meron kayong extra, you try to buy reading materials talaga. You try to buy books.
You mean the physical books, no?
The physical books.
Hindi lang e-books.
Hindi lang ebooks. Kasi the ebooks kasi for me ay ang advantage niya is you can search for it tapos parang mabilis mo kasi siyang i-search eh. Pero kasi I think it's a discipline that we need to develop din as medical students yung reading talaga ng physical and to how to yung the process itself of searching for information. I think we also need to build that discipline din. I also want to advise yung mga incoming medical students to always prepare food or to always prepare something that they can eat while there's classes. Hindi siya dinidisallow eh. So pwedeng meron silang mga water or meron silang just to keep themselves hydrated kasi medyo matagal yung hours. Imagine mo yon like you are going to spend 5 hours dire-diretso yon na nakaupo ka sa harapan ng computer. You can go for the bathroom. Pwede naman yun. Hindi naman nila i-disallow yun. Pero kasi sometimes kasi may mga mamimiss ka din na important things na sinasabi. So always get yourself ready with these
Your lectures
these
are
things.
synchronous, Gab, no? Hindi siya napopause or rewind, hindi. The lectures.
Yung
actual.
yung mga recordings yun yung mga yung mga recordings yun yung mga pwede mong i-rewind, i-pause or i-double speed nga i-double speed kapag gusto mong pakinggan. Pero like yung mga live lectures, syempre yun yung mga hindi mo pwedeng ma-pause or hindi mo mai-interrupt yun. So ano pa ba? Depende din kasi sa'yo sa learning mo kung you work better with boards or flashcards. So I think flashcards are also going to be helpful in your learning, lalo na for example for active recall, spaced repetition.
Are you
Syempre,
an Anki user, Gab?
yeah. I am. I am an
Okay.
Anki user pero hindi kasing expert ng ng mga kaibigan ko. My friends are Ankings and Queens. Kasi mga mga expert
Si
talaga
Sims.
sila diyan.
Anki bro yan.
Totoo.
Anking, oo, sobra.
Mukhang pwede ba akong humingi ng mga decks sa'yo for pathology and other subjects. Yun. You
Meron akong bro
Mm-mm.
previous episodes about Anki, so pwede nyo i-check.
Sige, I'll be very happy to check that out. Ayun, aside from that, yung mga boards and ito pa pala. You also need to prepare your calendars din. Physical calendars
Physical
are
calendars.
also physical calendars
Physical,
or digital calendars actually are going to be helpful. It helps you na magstay on track. Ako meron din ako dating whiteboard in which I always write my schedules. Tapos I also color code ng red kung quiz siya or SGD ba siya. So these are also helpful for me. Yun yung mga physical na stuff. Like, yun nga yung sinasabi ko eh. Kasi hindi, yung uniform kasi, nire-require siya sa amin. So, pwede ka din naman mag-uniform. So, that's also needed. Pero in terms of the physical nga, yun nga, sabi ko, writing materials, highlighters, and whatever that it is that,
Sorry,
whatever
the
it is that can help you
the
learn.
uniform is required, no?
Pero kasi since sa amin kasi mga first year, since we haven't got the chance to really ask for the uniform design, they ask us to just have something white na may
Okay.
color. So hindi naman siya required na like kailangan UST uniform siya. So kung minsan nga sa amin yung mga pang undergrad na uniform, that's
Yun na
what
yung
we
ginagamit
use.
niyo.
So yun yung dun sa mga physical and pati yung sa food. Pero pagdating like for example sa digital, I advise the students na pwede ba akong pwede ba akong magbigay ng tip ng ng
Of course.
like
Of
what they
course.
can use.
By all means,
So,
sige.
ito personally this helped me. Google Calendar. So hindi ako nagpo-promote ng brand or something, pero any calendar that can be in sync with your class, that's going to be useful. So what we did with our class was we had a class email. Kasi yung class email na yon, yung class secretaries namin, nilalagay na nila yung subjects doon and schedules na color-coded. So basta red yan, quiz yan, tapos parang black for epidemiology, parang yellow for ethics, parang ganito, ganyan. So parang in 1 week or in parang this week nakikita mo na, and that's good with UST kasi sa UST binibigay lahat ng schedule ahead of time.
Yeah.
So So, I think that's also helpful kasi nakikita ko na,
So yung
may
yung
quiz
buong
ako
class
next week.
schedule mo nasa Google Calendar.
Yeah, oo.
Mm.
So, may quiz na
We
ako.
also did that.
May quiz pala ako, ahead, next week. So, kailangan hindi tayo magsaset ng SGD meeting ganyan. So, it's synchronous for the whole class. So,
Yeah.
kahit basta naka-log in yung email mo sa phone mo or sa tablet mo or wherever it is, like sa
Yeah.
computer
So
mo,
makikita mo siya.
you'll get reminded din. So it's very useful. So you have that, the Google Calendar as a class. Another is, I also suggest having at least a Pomodoro timer.
Timer,
Yung mga
yeah.
ganun, yung mga timer for you to,
Yung 25 minutes ba yun, bro?
25 or
Yeah,
ako
you can
50-10.
adjust naman, 'di ba?
You can
Pwede mo
adjust,
siyang
So yun, mga
modify.
Pomodoro timer, I think that's also going to be helpful. But again, that depends on your learning style. Lastly, syempre, yung mga flashcard, yung mga flashcard app, so they can also use that. So again, hindi siya sobrang necessity, but I think it can help them. Ang pinaka-necessity doon yung Google, of course.
Do you need a
yung Google
printer?
Calendar. Oh, printer. That depends naman. That depends on you. Kasi kung hindi ka printed learner, hindi naman siya necessary. Pero kung let's say for example, kung may tablets ka, kailan ba kailangan ng printer? Like sa anatomy kasi for example, they send us like activities na kailangan namin mag-color eh. Parang pinapa-color na like okay, green triangle yung femoral triangle. So, you need to shade it with green. So, kung wala kang tablet or wala kang pen, for example, that can edit this, pwede ka mag-print, pwede ka mag-color, tapos tsaka mo isa-scan, tapos tsaka mo isa-send. So, medyo hassle yun sa ibang students. So, what they do is, naka-tablet na lang, then edit PDF na lang. So, yun, colored pencils are not necessarily necessary for histology anymore. So, hindi na siya masyadong ginagamit kasi lahat ay parang typewritten na. Sa anatomy, kung minsan ginagamit siya. But again, that depends on you. Kasi they also allow naman na digital editing ka na. So, yun.
So, sorry bro, medyo konting balik lang ako regarding
Sige,
sa Pomodoro.
Mm-mm.
I think maganda yan kasi sa online parang ang bilis mo madistract.
Mm-mm.
Parang konting notification lang pwede ka mag-check ng Twitter, Facebook, or news. So, I think malaking bagay talaga yung Pomodoro para yung 25 minutes mo aral, yung 5 minutes
then
mo
break.
yung
Yeah.
distraction. So,
There is actually, hindi, okay, sige. Not sponsored, pero there's a certain app kasi na, parang ang premise niya, hindi ko sasabihin yung name, pero ang pinaka-premise kasi niya is, on the 25
Pwede mo naman
minutes
sabihin para naman
baka
ito ba yung may
mag-download.
halaman?
sige. There's an app called Forest. So yung
yeah,
Forest
I
app,
know that.
yung Forest app kasi parang ang premise kasi niya ay parang on the 25 minutes or the 50 minutes that you're going to work, it's going to parang plant a tree, like nagfa-fab na siya or nagwa-water na siya ng tree, ganun. So, pag tinanggal mo sa app na yon at nag-check ka for example ng social media, nag-check ka ng internet, so ibig sabihin hindi mo pwedeng galawin yung phone mo at that
Kasi
time.
mamamatay yung tree, di ba?
Oo, ganun nga. So, mamamatay yung tree. So, kung mga achiever levels talaga na ayaw mong namamatayan ng puno, wag kang mag-Facebook or
Mafo-force ka na hindi talaga mag-phone. And di ba they actually plant a real tree for the trees that you plant?
Yeah, from what I heard. What I heard. Tapos din what also motivates you is that nakikita mo kasi yung forest na trinabaho mo on the day. So, ibig sabihin, kapag marami ka na plant na tree, ibig sabihin nun,
productive yung araw mo.
Productive yung araw mo. So, pwede rin na ganun. What we also do din, na-experience ko din to sa ibang subsections, kasi, parang napupunta ako sa iba't ibang subsec as president before. So, what we do, ay meron kaming, sa Zoom, naka-screen share, or naka-share screen yung Pomodoro website. Kahit kahit Pomofocus lang, for example, pomofocus.io. Tapos 5010, tapos mag-a-alarm lang siya doon. So, naka-share screen, nakikita mo yung malaking timer kung ilang minutes na lang. And then lahat kami naka-on cam, tapos naka-mute.
Okay. Sabay-sabay kayo nag-aaral.
Yeah, oo. Naka-on cam kami for us to be able to see na, sino nagsa-cellphone dito sa mga kasama ko dito? Sino yung hindi nag-aaral, ganyan. So, parang for accountability. Pero naka-mute para hindi kami ma-distract. Kasi ako, for example, as a past teacher, parang I learn better when I talk. Parang ganito dapat, nag-increase siya pa ganito, ganyan. So, madidistract lang yung iba. So, that's what we do. Tapos, pag 50 minutes, talagang wala talagang pwedeng mag-unmute at magsalita. Kailangan makikita namin ang isa't isa. Tapos, pag 10 minutes, pag natapos yung 50 minutes na yon, tas nag-green na yung screen namin, pwede na kami mag-on ng mic namin. Tapos, magtanungan ng anything or mag-talk about K-pop or anything na gustong pag-usapan ng mga
Yeah.
or yung mga na-experience namin on that day or yung mga kiniinasan namin, mga natutuwa kami. Yun.
Yeah, so that's
parang
another way to get creative, no? Kasi ang daming distraction sa bahay and daming distraction sa laptop or desktop.
Tsaka at least hindi mo rin kasi magagamit yung hindi mo rin kasi magagamit yung laptop mo for or yung tablet mo or whichever device yung gagamitin mo for social media. So, kailangan nakikita mo talaga sila na nag-aaral.
Yeah.
So bro, kung may kaaway ka, bati muna kayo ng 50 minutes, tapos away ulit kayo 10 minutes.
Pwede. Pero I don't suggest na mahirap din kasi na mahirap din na magkaroon ng kaaway sa online.
Online.
Mahirap na ang drama, no? Tapos dami mo pang aaralin. Anyway, speaking of laptop, no? Must have talaga, no? Laptop or desktop, tsaka iPad. And ba or pwede bang kailangan ba laptop and iPad or pwede ng iPad na?
Non-negotiable yung laptop as in and it's one of the saddest things about the inequity of the online learning. Kasi not everyone can afford a good laptop. Like for example, my laptop is not that fast. Mga ganyan. Pero
bro, PC pwede naman. PC.
PC
pwede
naman.
desktop.
As long as it's fast and it's workable, meron kang mga productivity apps like yung mga word processor, yung slideshow, tapos yung mga spreadsheet yung mga usual na mga brands. Basta, tsaka sa UST naman, yun, kasama yun sa tuition.
Yeah, libre
kasama
naman
yun sa
diba,
tuition, gamitin natin.
Apps. But can you survive with an iPad only? Like an iPad Pro?
For me, no.
Hindi. Kailangan talaga laptop, diba? Yeah, I agree.
For me, no. Kasi ang mas powerful for me ang laptop in terms of processing some presentations, doing some research, tapos yung editing. Tsaka lalo na sa UST welcome to UST Film School.
Yeah, ang dami.
Talagang
video projects. Pwede bang baliktarin yung question? Can you survive without an iPad?
Yes, you can survive without an iPad.
Okay.
I personally can attest to that for the first mga first shifts. I think iPad is a very good device. It can actually help students a lot kasi there's the flexibility of drawing. There's the flexibility of design, there's the flexibility. Tsaka mabilis talaga siya, no? Mabilis siya, and then since Apple pa medyo siya, parang malware and virus free, parang yun yung claim kasi. So I think it's helpful, but it's not necessarily a must have, lalo na sa UST Med. Parang feeling ko kasi naging na lang siya, naging necessity out of the ecosystem. Parang for example kasi at least kapag nagkita-kita kayo sa UST, for example, madaling mag-airdrop, alam mo yung mga ganung mga functions. Tsaka yung iba kasi mga physicians kasi nakikita mo din pag tinataas nila sa camera nila yung ang mga Apple din kasi yung mga devices nila. In terms of flexibility ng apps, you can use any tablet naman. You can use any tablet, and it's not necessary for you to buy iPad to belong or to survive. Hindi siya kailangan. But I must say, nung nagkaroon ako ng iPad, it really helped in terms of like PDF editing, for example, or yung highlighting or keeping books. Like for example, nung mga times na nahihirapan ng magbasa ng physical books. So, ganun. Pwede din na gumamit ka din ng it actually condenses a lot of your materials into a very thin device. So it's helpful, but it's not necessarily you cannot survive without it.
Okay. Thank you for those points. Last, no? For iPads and laptops. Sinabi mo kasi kanina, it was your tip na bumili talaga ng physical books. Yung tip ko kasi sa pinsan ko, huwag ka na mag-e-books ka na lang. Kasi during my time, hindi na nga namin nabubuklat yung physical books kasi di ba, pumupunta talaga kaming med school, di ba, kasi physical. So, mabibigat din kasi yung books. Kaya naman siyang aralin sa iPad, lalo na if you have an Apple Pencil, mabilis mag-highlight, nakaka-control F ka, search, di ba, mabilis. So,
Pwede mag-bookmark.
Pwede Actually, pero kasi, may mga tao kasi ang gusto talaga nila yung physical na ano. And siguro, with your setup, most of the time, on-screen kayo. Kaya siguro, sa setup nyo, mas okay na rin na may something physical ka na nakahawakan talaga as opposed to just doing everything on screen. Siguro, no?
Yeah. I agree with what you said. And I'd like to clarify again na ito, from my experience as someone in the academe for quite some time, students really learn differently. So we can actually look at the way that you learn. For me, for example, mas okay sa akin yung, and that's one of the reasons, no, Adrian, yung sinabi mo kanina regarding yung eye fatigue. That's a real phenomenon eh. Masakit talaga sa mata na you are screen exposed the whole day from 7 to 6, tapos may SGD meeting kayo, tapos you study kasi nasa laptop mo din yung lecture, nasa internet din. So basically all of the time. So parang I feel like therapeutic for me na mag-book lalo na sa mga ibang mga subjects.
Agree.
Tsaka kasi ewan ko baka mamaya kasi weird yung dating niya, pero na-implement ko kasi naalala ko yung amoy nung book, naalala ko yung itsura, naalala ko yung finold ko na page, parang ganon. Hindi ko magawa yun sa iPad or sa something. So there's advantage to it. So tama ka din dun sa sinabi mo. I think that's the compressibility, the searchability, yung pagbo-bookmark, pag-highlight na nagagawa talaga yun sa iPad. Pero I feel like pag marami din naman talaga nag-iPad din naman din talaga.
Yeah. Siguro mas convenient si iPad pero mas intuitive pa rin yung may actual kang hinahawakan. And yun nga, may naaalala ka na na-fold mo or 'di ba, ganun. Which is hindi mo masyadong ma-apply sa iPad.
Exactly.
That ends the first half of this episode. Talaga naman ang dami
nating nalaman, bro.
Yes, very high yield, bro. And medyo mahaba kasi yung usapan natin. Ayaw naman nating ma-overwhelm yung listeners natin, bro, no? But the second part of this episode is still very high yield. Kaya, abangan nyo talaga.
Kumbaga, bro, no? Yung Harry Potter 1, yung next week, Harry Potter 2.
Yes. In fact, parang mas high yield pa nga yung second part of this episode, bro.
Tama, bro. Kaya ako, abangan ko rin yun. Gusto ko pakinggan.
Of course, no? Also, gusto ko lang sabihin sa listeners natin na meron na pala tayong Facebook page, bro. Meron na tayong Facebook page. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but please follow us on Facebook. And also, like and subscribe our YouTube. Sa YouTube namin, may YouTube din pala kami.
Pagkatapos, bro, sa mga nag-i-email pala, no, kindly check your spam. Kasi yung minsan daw, yung mga email natin na reply, na pupunta sa spam. Pero hindi naman tayo spammer or scammer, no? Legit naman tayo na
yes, that's correct, no? Yung meron nga tayong listeners na nag-email, nag-inquire, may mga suggestions ng topic, pero sa spam lumalabas, hindi ko alam bakit. Baka yung reply din natin sa spam folders din nila. So, guys, please check your spam folders din. Baka nandun yung reply namin.
Pero check nyo rin kung kami yung nag-reply. Scammer.
Of course, ang dami ng scammer sa panahon na to. Talaga. Thank you again, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I hope marami kayong na-learn in this episode. Again, abangan nyo yung next episode namin.
Yes. Mag-email lang kayo kasi actually itong episode na to galing sa email ng isang incoming first year med. So, yun. Kung meron kayong suggestions, email lang kayo sa thebetterpillpodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can, since now we have a Facebook page, pwede din kayong mag-send ng message sa Messenger. So once again, this has been Adrian.
And this has been Mike. Catch us again next week for your refill prescription of
The Better Pill.
Pill.